At least 8 people died and more than 300 were injured during a mass stampede at Travis Scott's Astroworld Festival on Friday, November 5th in Houston, Texas. Houston Fire Department Chief Samuel Pena confirmed the casualties during a late press conference, calling it a tragic night for the city. He estimated the attendance at 50,000 and said trouble started brewing shortly after 9 p.m., saying, "The crowd began to compress toward the front of the stage and that caused some panic and started causing some injuries. People began to fall out and become unconscious, and that created additional panic." He went on to say that a mass casualty incident was triggered at 9:38 p.m., shortly after which his team transported 17 patients to the hospital, 11 which were in cardiac arrest at the time. Astroworld organizers had a medical tent on site, but Pena said festival staff were quickly overwhelmed by the situation, leading his team to step in and dispatch as many as 50 units. Videos shared on social media show a chaotic scene. Early in the evening, in a separate incident, hundreds of concert goers toppled steel barricades and stormed through security to access the concert. Later, as the tragedy was already underway, medical personnel can be seen carrying young people out on stretchers and attempting CPR on others. One clip showed Scott still on stage performing as several concert goers attempted to inform security guards of the emergency. Reps for Astroworld put out a statement confirming the second day of the festival, Saturday, November 6th, would be canceled, saying, "Our hearts are with the Astroworld Festival family tonight, especially those we lost and their loved ones. We are focused on supporting local officials however we can." Pena said the investigation will continue as they attempt to identify patients and casualties. Early Saturday morning, Travis posted a response to the tragic event, writing, "I'm absolutely devastated by what took place last night. My prayers go out to the family and all those impacted by what happened. Houston PD has my total support as they continue to look into the tragic loss of life. I am committed to working together with the Houston community to heal and support the families in need. Thank you to Houston PD, Fire Department, and NRG Park for their immediate response and support." This year's event marked the 3rd annual Astroworld put on by Scott, who grew up just outside of Houston.
Was launched 3 years ago as a tribute to a popular theme park in the Texan city of Houston and has grown in popularity since. Last year's event was cancelled because of COVID, so all 50,000 tickets for this were snapped up in the space of an hour when they went on sale in May. The rapper Travis Scott, who founded the festival and is from Houston, stopped several times during his 75-minute set when he spotted fans in distress.
We need somebody to help him. Somebody passed out right here. Somebody passed out right here. Hold on, don't touch him, don't touch him. Everybody just back up. Security, somebody help jump in real quick, keep going.
But panic later set in and the crowd surged towards the front of the stage. It's not yet known what caused the incident.
My job as a chief of police is to make sure that we find out what happened. We will treat it as an investigation because we don't know. I have investigators out here on the scene. I'm sending investigators to the to the hospitals because we just don't know. And we will find out.
The on-site medical team was quickly overwhelmed by hundreds of casualties. Emergency vehicles trying to access the most seriously injured appeared to be hindered by revelers, unaware of what was unfolding.
Once we started having the mass casualty incident where people were having CPR on several people, and it happened all at once. Suddenly we had several people down on the ground experience some type of cardiac arrest or some type of medical episode. And so we immediately started doing CPR and moving people right then.
Earlier in the day, hundreds of people had rushed the perimeter fence.
Four injured at a sold-out music festival in Houston on its opening night.
Rapper Travis Scott was on stage at the time when the crowd suddenly surged and he called for help. Now, in a moment, you're going to hear from the Houston Fire Chief here on GMA. But first, ABC's Phil Lipoff is here with the latest. Phil, good morning.
Gio, good morning to you. And this morning, that festival is canceled after that deadly and horrific night you all have just described. Travis Scott, the festival founder, was on stage, 9 o'clock, performing, when all of a sudden, that crowd surged. Overnight, chaos at a music festival in Houston turned deadly. Police say a crowd surge left hundreds injured, at least 17 hospitalized, and 8 people dead.
The crowd began to compress towards the front of the stage, okay? And that caused some panic.
According to police, of the 17 people hospitalized, 11 were in cardiac arrest.
We were definitely getting pushed very aggressively, and it was intense. It was intense.
The incident took place at the 3rd annual Astroworld Festival, headlined by Houston native Travis Scott. A live stream of the event showing Scott stopping his 75-minute performance several times when he spotted fans in distress in the crowd.
We need somebody to help him. Somebody passed out right here.
We were seeing people getting pulled out of the crowd, and we would see some of these people unconscious.
Authorities setting up a reunification center for families at a nearby hotel and still trying to identify victims, some as young as 10 years old. And this video, captured during the day on Friday, shows hundreds of people rushing checkpoints and destroying security property at the entrance. This morning, officials are searching for answers about what caused the crowd rush.
Nobody could dream of this, but we're here, and I think it's very important that none of us speculate.
Authorities tell us Live Nation, the concert organizer, agreed to end early in the interest of public safety. And we just got this. This is a statement from Astroworld. It says, in part, our hearts are with the Astroworld Festival family tonight, especially those we lost and their loved ones. It goes on to say that Astroworld management is cooperating with Houston authorities. As for those sent to the hospital, as we said, they ranged in age, the youngest, just 10. Gio?
All right, Phil, thank you. Joining us now is Houston Fire Chief Samuel Peña. Chief, thank you for your time this morning. I know it is a busy and sad morning there in Houston. You are in your car because you just left the reunification facility, and it must have been such a chaotic scene when your crews arrived and started reaching the victims. What was that like?
So the incident actually occurred when we determined it was a mass casualty incident. It occurred around 9:30 Central Time. And the venue organizer had its own security. They had their own medical component on scene. They actually had a type of field hospital that was set up there ahead of time to be able to treat minor injuries and so on and so forth. As soon as the crowd began to surge, as soon as those people began to be trapped essentially up at the front, and they began to be trampled, and they actually had people falling out and passing out. They quickly overwhelmed those medical resources.
Thank goodness you were there. What challenges did the crews face getting to those victims through the crowd?
Look, it was difficult to disperse the crowd. It was difficult to reach those patients. There were patients that, they were describing the music was still playing, and patients were being essentially, trampled in some instances. So it was a very chaotic scene. We ended up transporting about 23 patients. 11 of those were in critical condition. Crews were doing CPR en route to the hospitals for those patients, and tragically, 8 individuals, eight kids, really, because the transports range from age 10 all the way up to the mid to late 20s. Tragically, 8 of them lost their lives, and it may be more, because that's what we have at this point. But there were several that were in critical condition when we transported them to the hospital. Look, in my 27 years, I have never experienced this type of mass casualty.
I mean, and that really says something.
Patients were being essentially, trampled in some instances. So it was a very chaotic scene. We ended up transporting about 23 patients. 11 of those were in critical condition. Crews were doing CPR en route to the hospitals for those patients, and tragically, 8 individuals, eight kids, really, because the transports range from age 10 all the way up to the mid to late 20s. Tragically, 8 of them lost their lives, and it may be more, because that's what we have at this point. But there were several that were in critical condition when we transported them to the hospital. Look, in my 27 years, I have never experienced this type of mass casualty.
I mean, and that really says something. 27 years, and this is the worst you've seen. Houston Fire Chief Samuel Peña, thank you so much for joining us here on GMA, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you all. Stay safe.
All right.
Just an awful incident there. We'll stay on.